Last week, Pope Francis opened the synod entitled For a Synodal Church Communion Participation Mission. If you're like me, I didn't know what the word synod meant. I've heard of synods happening in the past. A few years ago, we had the synod on the new evangelization, and before that, there was one for youth. So what is a synod for a synodal church? Well, it's about the Holy Father wanting to hear from all the people of God from around the world. But it begins at the local level, so here at the parish and within the diocese, and then the listening is going to happen in a national level. Then finally, it's going to culminate when bishops from around the world present summaries in Rome in October 2023. Now, the word synod comes from the Greek meaning journeying together. And so this idea of a synodal church is all the people of God journeying together, or all of us walking side by side on the journey of discipleship. And this idea of journeying together is not new. It's not Pope Francis' great idea. Jesus gave us that model. He and the disciples journeyed everywhere together. So how does this model apply to us here at the parish? How do we as a parish journey together as disciples of Jesus? Well, an obvious place is what we're about right here, right? And we gather for Sunday Mass. It's an important and central part of our living out our faith, and we do it together. But what about the rest of the week when we go our separate ways? How do we journey together after Sunday Mass? How do we carry a sense of being on the journey of discipleship together, regardless of where life takes us after Mass, so that throughout the week I am aware that I'm not alone, right? That I can say I'm not in this by myself. I'm with others in this journey of discipleship always. 2 weeks ago, Father Brian introduced our parish discipleship pathway. Each step of the pathway is set up to animate the giftedness that every member of our parish brings to our community. And the various steps challenge us to put our relationship with Jesus at the center of all that we do as disciples. So as disciples, we encounter. Encounter is about that personal encounter with Jesus. As disciples, we grow together, growing and maturing in our faith within groups. We worship. We worship our God in the Eucharist and other forms of prayer and praise. And as disciples, we serve, serving others with generous hearts, and we evangelize. We go out proclaiming the good news of Jesus. Now, we'll be getting into more detail about each of these 5 steps in the future, but today I want to keep our focus on this idea that as members of this parish, we help one another along the pathway. We journey together. Following Jesus and journeying with other members of the parish is key to the model of discipleship that Jesus asks us to live. And we live out our discipleship on 2 levels. There's the individual level where I say, well, I follow Jesus as his disciple, right? I take personal responsibility for my next steps in the discipleship pathway. But also there's the community level, that I am part of a community of disciples with all of you, right? And all of you watching from home, all of us, that we are there to help one another along the discipleship pathway, walking together alongside one another on the journey. The discipleship pathway gives us a common understanding, a common language, and a common approach so that we can have a sense of unity as disciples of Jesus. We can say that we need to have a sense of being on the same team as members of this parish. We need to be unified in our journey as disciples, encouraging and supporting one another as we walk alongside each other in faith. we see quite the opposite happening in our gospel today, almost the, what not to do. James and John are going off the path of discipleship and getting on their own path. They ask Jesus, grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. To sit at the right and left hand was a sign of power and prestige. So John and James wanted to have this special share in Jesus' glory. They were trying to reserve their spot before the other disciples got in on the action. And of course, Jesus wants all of his disciples to share in his glory, but first we need to share in a life like his. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Giving one's life is the ultimate act of service, and Jesus exemplified this by embracing the cross and all it entailed for the good of others. So to choose to be his disciple is to choose to accept the cross in our lives, trusting that Jesus is there to help us carry our crosses, trusting that Jesus journeys with us through life. But Jesus not only journeys with us, alongside of us, he not only walks with us, Jesus accompanies us through the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. But Jesus also desires to help us through one another, that he literally journeys with us through our fellow disciples, through one another. That's why it's so necessary for us to journey together as a parish community and to be there for one another, to be alongside of one another, and together to go beyond the walls of this church, especially to those most in need. So again, this journey of discipleship is twofold. Individual level, that I take personal responsibility for my steps as a disciple, but also that I follow Jesus in a part of a community with all of you. And together we encourage and help one another on this path of discipleship. I want to highlight that the first step of the journey of this journey, the pathway, is encounter. To have an encounter with Jesus, that our faith encounter with Jesus is what sets us off on the path of discipleship. Last week, Deacon Art touched on the encounter step of the discipleship pathway, stating that the Alpha course helps the parish to foster personal encounters and relationships with Jesus through the power and ministry of the Holy Spirit. Now, Alpha is not just something happening in our diocese or our parish. There's bishops throughout the world that have asked their parishes to use Alpha as their main tool for evangelization. So we're part of something much bigger than just us here. And Alpha is something that we don't do alone. One journeys with others as part of Alpha. And all of us can be involved. We can all invite someone to participate in Alpha. And we can also walk alongside those people. Even if we're not on the course with them, we can, call them up during the week and see how their evening went and all that kind of thing. This morning, we're going to hear a video testimony from Kay Landry about her Alpha experience last spring and about her encounter with Jesus and how she was encouraged along her journey of discipleship with others coming alongside of her. Kay lives in Montreal, but she was invited by her sister Rita, who is a parishioner here. So let's turn our attention and listen to Kay's story.
My life before Alpha, I was missing a lot. My husband and I used to attend weekly Mass, and because of all the COVID restrictions, that was closed. and we missed hearing the message. I wanted to attend Alpha because I was just missing the spiritual and social connection with our church. And I had had those discussions with my sister on various occasions. Rita had sent me the link for Holy Trinity, and she invited my husband and I to take part in that. And she didn't explain much about it. She wanted us to experience it on our own. Alpha Online was a learning experience in more ways than one. I had never done a Zoom call, and I received the invitation and the link. And when I tried to connect the first time, I wasn't successful. And Tammy called me and very graciously walked me through it. By the next week, I was up and running with it. And when I connected, the first thing I noticed was just the beautiful music that was playing. And after that, the icebreaker that Corey presented to us, it was a way for me to shut out all the outside world and just concentrate on what was taking place that night. And it was a good start to the evening. And next we saw short videos and had a discussion, and then broke up into small groups. And I was very intimidated at the time. But let me tell you, the group leader was wonderful, and she just put us at ease. What helped me a lot, and my husband, was that it was in the comfort of our own home. The talk that had the biggest impact for me was prayers. And I think it's because my prayers, I pray every day. It's part of my life. But I always prayed for other people and for their struggles and what they were going through. It was so relevant at that time because it was just shortly after we had a health crisis in our family with my daughter who lives in the States. In our small group that night, Linda led a prayer, and it so touched me that they prayed about us and support for my family. And by the time we finished that night, we were both in tears, but happy tears. We just felt so enveloped in love and support. The experience enriched my life, and it made my faith stronger. And I would just like other people to share in that experience. Yes, I would invite them, and it would be in the hopes that they would have an experience similar to mine or very different, whatever their needs are. Even though we're miles away, we can still connect virtually and live stream. And that's so important through these difficult times.
Just think with me for a moment about all those who supported Kay on this part of her discipleship journey. First, her sister, who supported her by inviting her to Alpha and encouraging her to take that step beyond her comfort zone. Then when Kay had difficulty connecting through Zoom, Tammy stepped in, came alongside of her, provided the tech support she needed. She mentioned how the Alpha MC helped her to feel comfortable so that she could enter into the experience wholeheartedly. And that example of her small group praying with her and her husband, and how they experience the presence of grace through that. And also there was her small group leader that helped her feel comfortable and all that. And Kay also told us that since Alpha, she and her sister Rita have been talking about their faith and journeying together, and she said it has been wonderful. So I think that's such a great testimony to so many people coming alongside of Kay and supporting her and encouraging her on this part of her discipleship path. So this is the kind of experience that we want every person to have here at the parish. We want everyone to be supported and encouraged in their journey of discipleship, and we want everyone to help others on their path, to help others take their next steps on the discipleship pathway. As disciples, our final destiny of our journey is to be with one another forever, right? Our final destiny as disciples on a journey together is to share in Jesus' glory together in heaven, together as his disciples. Now, that's a journey well worth taking it together, and it begins here and now.